Hey, welcome. It's Scott with Zenvi AI. You're on the Systems Are Sexy podcast. Today we are joined by Brad Hagmann of Alpine Start Development. He leads acquisitions, drives high impact real estate investments across multifamily, student housing, retail, and self storage. Dallas based family owned company, primarily focused on ground up multifamily mixed use projects in Texas. So, welcome to the podcast, Brad. How are you?
Great, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, I guess let's start at the beginning here. What kind of investments or retail assets you guys currently focused on?
Sure. Like as you mentioned, we're a family-owned business, and we're local to mostly the DFW market, but call it Texas. We're active in most of the major Texas markets, with the lion's share of that being in DFW. Think of us as we're rental housing builders. We'll build anything from single family for rent communities, townhomes, 3 and 4 story garden style multifamily projects are kind of our bread and butter. And we have some projects that are kind of more the trophy assets and will be higher density, but all multifamily, all for rent.
So, how do you guys identify opportunities when you're looking to find the land, and how do you decide what kind of project you're going to put there?
Sure. Before Google Maps, it was a lot more difficult. You had to go out and drive the sites or rent helicopters up to tour sites. We've been blessed by technology with mapping softwares that from the simplest of Google Maps and to the most complex. We right now we use a system or software called Lightbox Vision. It's essentially got everything from parcel data to ownership data, zoning, and even it lets us overlay floodplains and wetlands, and so we're able to use that tool as a way to return a list of prospects, right? So we prefer, or I guess our investors like a good story on a site. A lot of times that's if we can go acquire something off market and we're direct to the ownership. So that's one way that we tackle off market pursuits. We've got certain criteria and it will vary based on markets, but essentially, if you're looking at a 3 or 4 story project, you probably need 10 or 15 acres. We can put those parameters into a program like Lightbox, along with certain zoning requirements. If we know a city is open to or against zoning changes, we can adjust for that and return a list of sites. The second way, and obviously a very common way to do it is through marketed projects, marketed land, and we maintain relationships with brokers in all of our active markets to make sure that we're getting a look at everything.
Right. So, with multiple projects going on, how do you guys manage it all? Like, let's say, project timelines, client communication, subcontractors. I'd assume you guys use some type of software for that as well.
We do, and it probably depends on at what point in. Think of it as an assembly line, right? It's I kind of sit on the front end of the business. All new business will funnel through my department first. That's like business development, acquisitions, what have you. We use certain softwares. Once it gets to a point that we're handing it off to our construction team, I believe they've used Procore in the past as a project management tool. I'm not sure what they use today, but our construction team will have its own separate, they don't talk to each other, system for keeping track of timelines and project schedules. We've also used smart sheets in the past, which is probably a little less involved, but a good project management tool. We were looking on the acquisition side. We're also trying to implement blanking on the HubSpot, Salesforce, CRM. And then once it gets built in, we're leasing, and we've got multiple projects that are in lease up right now. We use asset management, use a different software. I believe that's Bubblegum AI is what we've been implementing recently. But we've got our own, asset management software that we pay for that gives us all the analytics of the operating properties.
Gotcha. So you guys are focused on the DFW area. What do you guys are on the same path for where you've been, or kind of where do you see the opportunities for growth in, let's say, the next 3 to 5 years?
Sure. Well, we like Texas and we like DFW. I think it's a diverse economy. It's a growing economy. It's one that it's a buzzword whenever you're talking to capital. There's almost any capital you talk to, they want to have some exposure in DFW, regardless of what asset class you're talking about. So we will be here long term. This is home base. We'll continue to look for opportunities, both suburban and infill. Our design team has, through several iterations, been able to sort of hone in on or perfect a program for our lower density or product types. So it's more of a plug and play, and it's something that's efficient, and that we can that's marketable to our clients or to our tenants. And on the infill stuff, those sites are a little bit more unique, and um, they tend to be better located, but each have their own sort of design program. So there's not really a cookie cutter approach that you can take to those types of sites. We probably focus more on suburban than infill, but it's always good to have a couple of trophy locations, for whether it be for the brand or for diversification of you know multifamily within multifamily product types.
I was speaking to a developer today. So he's in Texas too. He's talking about how Texas is the seventh largest economy in the world. Like it's ahead of France now, which was pretty shocking to hear those numbers. I'm sure you see it all the time.
Yeah, it's everything's bigger in Texas, right? um, we will eventually, last 3 to 5 years, we'll open a second office that likely has a similar story to Texas, likely Florida, and 3 to 5 years definitely, maybe sooner. It really is going to depend on availability of sites and economic feasibility.
Right. You had mentioned stakeholders. What does that process look like for you guys to find those, but also kind of nurture those so people stay in the pipeline, that they're still interested in working with you guys? Because there's obviously a lot of opportunities for them to invest their money in different places.
Sure. From a stakeholder or investor perspective, there's really, the way that we're structured, we're often getting institutional capital um, for sort of a one-stop shop, one check for the LP slug, if you will. We usually do a 90-10 transaction. We bring in one check for the 90% of the equity requirement. We're the other 10, and we fill that with long-term relationships that are partners in the business with us. On the equity partner side, the people that we do the most business with are overseas in Japan. That's been a culmination of 10 plus year relationships, started with high net worth individuals on smaller deals that we were able to return some capital for, and they liked the way that we did business and said, hey, how do we invest? And ultimately that's turned into going to the companies, now that we're doing fully institutional projects, going to the companies that those high net worth guys worked for, um, and having an introduction to the leadership there, and then their companies writing the whole check. We maintain those relationships. We visit Japan once or twice a year. We've got active projects that are always, whether they're coming in and we're touring the asset, or we're getting on a weekly or monthly asset management call to kind of talk about the properties. But we stay in communication with them, and we keep them up to date on our pipeline and offerings. And they've always got the opportunity to come in and say, hey, I want to do that deal. And if they don't, we kind of just, okay, now go to the next one. We've got 2 or 3 partners over there that we've done multiple deals with each.
How do you guys do investor outreach now? Trying to stay in front of people.
Usually, so we don't use, for the most part, they're all direct relationships, so on the capital market side. And the way our shop has been set up, we're not a fund. We're usually raising money deal by deal. Even if we're going back to the same people, we're talking to them about each deal as it comes up. So as we get control of sites, we are and sometimes even before, depends on our level of conviction and getting that control. But we're immediately sharing each project with our, closest equity relationships. If for whatever reason all of them were to say no, there's a list of others that we keep track of. And another thing that's kept in the CRM to continue to follow up and refine the boxes. If if one wasn't a fit, well, tell us why, and we'll make sure to account for that in the next deal that we show you.
Gotcha. Do you guys, I guess, what's the biggest bottleneck you guys have when it's talking maybe like scaling, acquisition, sourcing deals? Is there something that if you could wave a magic wand, it would make life easier for you?
Bond and sellers give us lower pricing. I don't know. We feel like we run a pretty efficient shop. You can always get more efficient. I think there is a bottleneck on availability of good sites at economically feasible prices. But from an operations perspective, what we will run into, and we haven't yet. Part of that's a function of it's been slow the last few couple of years. Part of that is newer company and building pipeline, but we will run into a bottleneck of we've got a lot of projects. There's a certain capacity limit at some point, right? Like we need to stage the project such that we don't overwhelm our development team or our construction team or give them more than they can handle, because each project takes at least three people on site, including back office, and finding that balance of we want to do every good deal we see, but doing it with a growth rate that makes sense for the company is tricky.
Yep. Got it. So obviously there's a lot going on with AI and technology. Do you guys implement that into your business, or are you kind of old school in the way you approach it?
A little bit of this, a little bit of that. We're that there's some things that are still kept on static Excel documents, and you want to change it, you're saving a new version and you're dumping the old one into the archive, and it's being handled via email, and it's not dynamic. It doesn't auto update. We've started using AI. We don't use it necessarily as a means to produce business or a means to increase revenue per se, but it has been helpful in from an organizational and kind of time management perspective, whether that be an AI note taker taking notes for meetings, helping in emails, whether it's filtering out marketed versus non-marketed sites, and kind of organizing our flow of opportunities. Like I said, on the asset management side, and this is something I don't spend a lot of time in, but we use an AI software that gives us real dynamic live snapshots of our portfolio, but also I think to some extent it's optimizing our portfolio from a what's market rent kind of perspective. How are we? So I guess from that lens, you are trying to optimize revenue. Was we posted the rent online, and we talked to our property management team, and we updated that as we saw fit, whether that be quarterly, monthly, or weekly. Now all of the AI or all of the programs out there that we use, our rents are changing by the minute they can. It's all based on availability and desirability and time on market and optimizing the rents for the most traffic.
Right. How do you guys communicate with tenants then?
So most of the tenant communication is going to come from the property. We hire third-party property managers. We don't manage in-house. Our asset manager oversees the portfolio from that perspective and manages the communications with the property manager. They're dealing directly with the tenants.
So the goal of this podcast really is to just people that listen want to know, how do I scale a business? So let's say someone's on your path, or maybe he's interested in going the same route that you guys have. What is some advice you would recommend to somebody starting out that's interested in doing multifamily, doing for rent projects like you guys are doing?
Sure. There's especially on the development side, there's a large a capital requirement up front if you're going to go, design a project that's 250, 300 units. A lot of times the way that I see people getting started in this business is, you've got access to this piece of land and you don't know what to do with it. If you've got control over a piece of land, that's kind of in my eyes, kind of the first step to getting your foot in the door with development. And even if you don't have, the team or the back office or even the experience to go out and execute on that development, but it should be something. You come talk to groups like us, and we're always happy to let owners or sellers participate in the deal. Like I said, local family office, small company, we're able to kind of be flexible and work with people who are just starting out. And if you've got control over the land, we're happy to work with you. You want to start smaller than institutional, I'd say go buy a smaller piece of land, and you can build a 4 or an 8 plex, and you can go up from there. I mean, that's how one of my partners, David, that's how he got his start, was bought a duplex here and then a 4 plex there, and next thing you know, you've got 60 units that you own and manage that are all in the same kind of general vicinity for operations ease, and then you can just start gradually moving up to larger deals. You start hiring a team. What I advise or caution people on is, that growth rate, and we've seen it many times, and we'll see it many times again. And when people get out over their skis and bite off more than they can chew, um, or grow too fast, and you don't have the infrastructure in place to support that growth, or even down to policies and procedures. How does the transaction flow? You add too many transactions, and then you have to catch up with team that you're going to find that you're missing some things.
Right. Kind of in that same vein, looking back, has there been a strategic decision or a project that you work on that you felt like had a kind of like your hero project or had a huge impact on your guys' growth? Is there maybe one or two projects that you look back on that really propelled you guys forward?
Yeah, I mean, look, we started this business in kind of the height of it all, right? So, um, 2020, 2021, 2022, first quarter were it was kind of the Wild West out here with in DFW specifically, because land pricing was going through the roof at the same time that inflation was going up. And I'll never forget, I was in Tokyo with Zach and David, and we're raising money for one of our projects that's turned into our best performing asset by far. And I thought it was going to be, the opposite of that. I thought that one was one that, I wasn't certain it was going to work. And then that was in Grand Prairie. It's called Alpine Village. It's a beautiful community. It's unique in that it's got a mix of product types. So we've got single family rentals, we've got townhome component, and we've got a traditional multifamily component, all in a 20-acre single community with amenities throughout. It's performing extremely well, better than we had anticipated, but it was one that was, financed, and the money was raised during the Q3 of 21 and Q1 in 22, when things started to when rates started to go up and capital started to press pause. The fact that we were able to get that deal done and to see it perform so well is really satisfying.
So if people want to find out about you guys, what's the best way to check you guys out?
Sure. You can go to our website, Alpine Start Dev, like development. You can reach out to me via LinkedIn or email. My email is bradh@alpinestartdev.com. Happy to chat if you've got land in Texas or Florida, or just questions about the market in general.
That's great. Well, I appreciate your time, Brad. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott.